First comment was from someone saying, "Stick to SuperCoach, you fat bastard." So, A, I blocked them, and B...
Hello SuperCoaches and welcome to another of our pre-season specials. We are talking mid-range madness, which I think is the perfect segue to introduce Rob Sutherland to the show.
Thanks, Tom. Which is funny, right? Because my kids refer to me as mid, which I thought was a little bit of a compliment. And then I looked it up and I discovered that it's not. But I'll settle for mid, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh, middle-aged madness is probably a better description for you.
Again, had this conversation about middle age with my youngest, the spare, and he informed me, "Dad, you are not middle-aged, you are past middle-aged.
Oh, well,
make the most of it." So there you go.
So big week in SuperCoach, obviously. Tell us something that happened to you.
Well, this isn't something that happened to me recently. It's happened about 2 weeks ago. But you hit me with... In fact, no, we had the run sheet. I had plenty of time to prepare for this and I just didn't. So Tom's like, "You've got to tell a little story," and I can't tell a story about wetting myself again. So I'm going to tell this story. A few weeks ago, I was climbing. I like to boulder. Everyone in the office knows it. I'm a bit obsessed about it. And I did a climb I was pretty happy with. I put it up on Twitter, and the first comment was from someone saying, "Stick to SuperCoach, you fat bastard." So, A, I blocked them, and B, I realised I was a bit of a fat bastard, and I felt bad for blocking him, but once you block someone on Twitter, you can't unblock them. So I can't find him to unblock him. So whoever it is, A, you were right, and B, I feel bad.
Well, I've got some good feedback to hit you with because I had a meeting yesterday. I told you about it as I was heading in. I don't know if I've told you too much about it afterwards, but the meeting was called Podcast Feedback. And so this has popped up. I don't know if I saw it late or whether it was hastily organised, but it's popped up late. And I'm like, oh dear.
This is not going to be good, right? Yeah, because feedback usually is not positive.
Yeah, my first thought was Rob's story about thinking he pissed himself could be the first thing on the agenda. Anyway, I get in there and it's all Rob. Oh, how good's Rob? Rob's so funny. His banter is so good. Rob. Compliments, just constant compliments for you. I don't think I got a single compliment. Everyone in there loved you.
You know what that is? That's people who are like, last minute, they're like, "Shit, we've got to go to a meeting and we've got to talk about something." Yeah. They haven't watched the show, right? Then they're just like, let's say something nice about the old bloke. Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
We are talking about mid-range madness
let's
today.
get on to Super. Yeah. We are going to talk SuperCoach. Let's do it now.
Supercoach.com.au if you haven't signed up already. So we're going to go through some of the most popular mid-ranges and then give our thoughts on some guys who should be higher on the list. First up, Shaun Lane. This makes absolute sense to me. Only 10 games last year, 60 minutes, which is a fair bit down on him. It's one of these guys where you can't see it going too wrong unless he gets injured. I think he does at least maintain his price, and hopefully there's a good chance of him going up in price. I think he's about 250k underpriced compared to previous seasons.
Compared to particularly, I'm losing track of where we are. 2023 was pretty much a write-off. 2022 was his breakout year, right?
Yeah.
Like Lane, I should say, right? For anyone who's new to the game, right? Like a gun is someone 600k and above. Yeah. Cheapies are 300k and below. Mid-ranges we usually hate. But this year, there's lots of mid-ranges, hence we're doing a special show on it, right? Yep. Normally, mid-ranges are poison to start the season.
And this was also in the feedback meeting the other day or yesterday, and I'm glad that you've taken...
Less close-ups of Rob.
I'm glad that you've
Rob doesn't know what camera to look at.
I'm glad that you've taken the feedback on board.
Right.
But anyway, keep going.
Okay, so anyway, this year, there's loads of mid-ranges, so that's why we're doing a show on him. So Lane largely missed last year. The year before was his breakout. He's like a big unit who was sort of okay on an edge, but never really SuperCoach relevant. And then he just started working through the middle. It was like he had like a gallon transformation without the question marks. And so Lane coming in this year at this price is awesome. He does 40 to 50, 45, 50 in base. He's got great attacking stats. He runs off Dylan Brown's hip. I think he's a must at about, 460, something like that. One of the first in my team.
And look, I mean, the secret is definitely out. He was the most popular player in SuperCoach. I think he's dropped to about 4th or 5th now, but either way, extremely popular. Yeah. Another guy who's really popular is Taylan May. He's about 200k underpriced based on his big breakout season in 2022 when he won the comp. Yeah. He was playing on the wing, averaged 64. This year, he's coming back from an ACL and at centre, which I think reduces his output a little bit. But still, he's a centre at the best team in the competition. So, again, unless he gets injured, I can't see his price going down.
If named for round one, you got to put him in your team. There are whispers that he's perhaps behind Peach, who was pretty good. I mean, I love to sort of, hang stuff on Peach, no pass Peachy, all that sort of stuff. But he was pretty good last year. And then there's Paul Alamotti, so there's some competition at the spot. But if he wins a centre spot at, 480k, I think you got to take it, yeah.
Obviously, we're repping the code today. We've got the code Drink Bottles, hats, this shirt as well. Rob likes to run his own race. He's probably wearing something from some shop in Surrey Hills.
No, mate, Alex Brown, who's the head of code, just said, you are never to be associated with my brand, Robert. So I'm not giving you a shirt. And I'm like, that's fair enough.
You can get a subscription for $7.99 a month for the year, so that's pretty cheap. I mean, I cop it a lot about plugging this, but essentially, it's like a coffee a month or a cheap schooner a month. There is no.
Geez, you come from a fancy part. $8 a coffee.
That's why I said a cheap schooner. Or expensive coffee is what I meant to say. There's no reason not to get on. It's just so cheap. Just do it anyway. Let's
do it for Tom's articles. They're worth it.
Yeah. Otherwise, SuperCoach won't exist. Josh Curran.
At the Dogs. I think, provided he's named at lock, which is where the speculation is that he will end up. Again, big work rate. We know in the middle, at 60 minutes, he should do 45 in base. Has a nice pass, has some sneaky feet at the line. Named, he's in.
Yeah, I mean, he's showed so much SuperCoach promise in the past and hasn't quite delivered. It's never worked out for him from injury, off-field stuff, minutes. There's always something has gone wrong with him.
Yeah.
I think this year could be the year that it actually pans out for him.
And he comes in cheap because he had a sort of mixed year at the Warriors where he was playing sort of like a bits and pieces role off the bench. Now he should be a starter. Yeah. And
so named for the Indigenous All-Stars this weekend, so we'll get a really good look at him this round. Unfortunately, that means that we don't quite know where he fits into the Bulldogs pecking order because he's obviously not named in their team this week, but hopefully he plays lock for them this year. And if he's named at the start for round one, pretty much a must-have.
Correct. Yep.
Bronson Xerri, interesting one because he's back 4 years out of the game. I've seen, you see these guys come back after long periods out of the game and they really struggle. Will Hopewadi was one. There's so many examples of this. I've just got a feeling that they'll ease him back through the New South Wales Cup, but he has been named at centre in what is a relatively strong, it's not full strength, but it's a pretty strong trial team for the Bulldogs. No Stephen Crichton, though, is crucial, and he does play centre, which is Xerri's position.
Yeah, so many bits and pieces, but 340, it's the same, like it's rinse, repeat. 340k, if named to start, he's in my team. I'm kind of hoping that I can get other true cheapies at like 270k and save that 70,000 that Xerri is with those question marks. But for now, penciled in.
Look, we've talked up most of the players so far. One guy I don't quite understand is Ruben Cotter.
Yeah, I'm with you. Look, a great player in real life, and this is one of those examples where real life performance doesn't cross over to SuperCoach because Cotter's an undersized prop lock, but he works his butt off. So 40 tackles, plenty of runs. But there's no real attack to Cotter, right? There's no offloads. There's a very occasional try and line break, but it doesn't happen a lot. And therefore, at 550k, I prefer true mid-rangers at the second row. I think we've got a lot of them, and we've talked about a few, and we'll talk about more. And then at prop, I prefer the elite Tino Tapane combination, or Tino Haas if you've got more money. I just don't see that Cotter's got the upside.
Jaden Campbell, we had on this list, obviously news has come in since we wrote this run sheet last night, that he is out for, 3 weeks, so back in round 4.
At least.
At least, and also David Fafita too. So, look, you've got to put a line through both of those guys, but there are some SuperCoach ramifications here. Keanu Kinney is an absolute weapon, and if anyone watched him in the, I think it was either the Queensland Cup Grand Final or that game where New South Wales Cup plays, the Queensland Cup team absolutely killed it and got man of the match. He's a weapon, so he comes in and plays fullback for Jaden Campbell. 270k, unfortunately only available at fullback. So if you went with him, you'd have to have a cheapie at fullback, and fullback is obviously the best position in SuperCoach, so you probably want 2 guns there. So, unfortunately, I think one of the better cheapies in SuperCoach this year is just going to go at about 1 or 2% ownership.
Yeah, I think you've got to let him go. You can't waste a fullback slot without a premium. It's a double premium slot, no questions for mine. There's also a chance that Brimson goes there. We don't know. So, yeah, it's sad. Campbell's at like 20% ownership. And a lot of people are going to be reshuffling, and that means they're going to have to shuffle their whole team, because he was like, a lot of people had him at a 480k as their number 1 5/8. They're now going to have to find the money to go up.
Yep. Brendan Piakura, interesting because he is now a starting edge back rower at the Broncos now that Kurt Capewell's left. The issue I've got is his minutes were very good last year, 57 minutes. Does he increase that to 80 minutes, which is what we would need for him to be a good buy? It's going to be tough for him. He's only played 14 NRL games, might be 15. And they've got Pat Carrigan, who can move to the edge as well. So what do you think? What are your thoughts on him? I think there are better mid-rangers in the back row.
Look, I started the year as a no, and I've moved to a yes. I've swapped him for Viliami Kikau, because he's 50k cheaper, and I profile him as kind of the same. I know Kikau's got the bigger name and the bigger history, but they're not work rate second rows. They're 35 points in base, but really good attacking edge guys. They both scored lots of tries. Piakura scored heaps of tries in the Q Cup, and then scored a few for the Broncos. I think at 426 he's worth the gamble. I don't think he'll lose money. I think he can make you money. So I've got him in at the moment.
One guy who is falling down the most popular players list pretty quickly is Ryan Pappenhausen, even though he's been named to return in this weekend's trial. So we'll get a look at him this weekend. For me, if he's kicking goals, he is a really good purchase and hard to leave out. If he's not kicking goals, I think you have to go without him and back 2 guns in that position. Probably, for me, it'll be Ponga and Turbo, who's a risk. But if either of those guys get injured, and it's a good chance of that happening, then he can go down to Pappenhausen pretty easy and make that cash. Whereas if you start with Pappenhausen, it's very hard to go up from him.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, right? That you start with the high money because you give the flexibility. Kicking goals, I agree. I think if he kicks goals, he moves up almost in line with Turbo for mine. Yep. And I don't want to have both of them because they've got well documented and well chatted about on these podcasts injury histories, right? So I want one secure fullback and one risky upside fullback, and it's going to be Turbo or Paps. Yep. Without the goal kicking, it's Turbo. With it, it's closer.
Ezra Mam, I don't understand. I think this is just Broncos fans and Queenslanders getting a bit excited about the grand final, to be honest. He's never had that huge SuperCoach pedigree, and he doesn't kick goals, which is often a key indicator in those halves positions, although there are a couple that don't, but they also have big base stats in Cameron Munster and Dylan Brown.
Yeah, I see him just behind Brown and Munster, and that's a 5'8's a funny spot this year. The premiums, none of them are really goal kickers. They're all, they're legends or great players and workers. I think Man can reach that, but for now, I've found the money to go to Dylan Brown instead.
Interesting looking at draft. We're getting lots of draft content up at the moment through Wilson Smith. I did my draft order the other day, and 5'8 is tough. You've got Munster and Dylan Brown, and then a lot of nothing. So both these guys are really important to get early in the draft.
Yeah. Outside of that, I think Brooks could go okay at the new club, but that's the beauty of draft. You can sort of take that punt, I think. If you don't get those two, then you're getting into sort of round 6 and 7.
Thoughts on Flegler? Because I don't get Flegler. He's moved to a new club at the Dolphins, moving from the Broncos. He averaged 44 minutes last year. You need him to get, let's say, 60 to be a really good purchase, and I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I could see maybe 5 minutes more, right? But it's not like... I know the props at the Dolphins are older, to put it nicely. Jesse Bromwich and Crazy Man Chainsaw Wallace.
Madness.
And, like they're not young, but they are more than capable of playing 40 minutes. And I think Flegler plays 45. I don't see a huge upside there. So I don't see that one.
Another guy I'm not keen on at all is Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. I think it's another case of people choosing a name before actually looking at the stats.
Yeah.
He wasn't at fullback. He's playing centre this year. At fullback, he still wasn't that great for SuperCoach at the Warriors. He was okay, but just okay. He certainly wasn't a keeper. And then he switches to centre this year. 2 years out of the game, it's way too much of a risk for me. If he absolutely kills it in the pre-season and then has a good sort of first 2 rounds, he might be an option, but he's got to prove everything again.
And he's priced at $540, so he's priced at solid output, right? So it's not like his price is going to spiral to, you know, $200K over what you could have got him for at the start. It might climb $50K with some good performances. So there's no rush. Stand back and watch.
Let's chat about some left field mid-rangers, some guys who we think should be a little bit further up the rankings than they are. Bo Firma, for me, particularly with this news that David Fifita is out of the first 3 rounds, is looking really good. He's coming back from an ACL, which is always a worry, but he's priced on a big discount. Hopefully he goes straight back into 80 minutes. And that would, with Fifita out, it means he gets to play in his preferred edge as well, at least for those first 3 rounds. And then we see what happens.
Yeah, and I mean, the ACL wasn't a mid-season ACL, it was the beginning of the season ACL. He's had the entire 2023 to rehab and build up for round 124. Huge base. He works his butt off. And sneaky good try-scoring record. On the left, after Lane, he was the second guy I put into my second row.
Yep, he's in for me. Who's someone that you've got your eye on?
Oh, Drew Hutch.
Yeah,
I
love him. Even though he's left your Roosters, you still like him?
Yeah, I don't hold a grudge. I still like Latrell Mitchell. Left the Roosters, went to South. So I meant to hate him, but I don't. He's showtime. Like he's enjoyable to watch no matter where. Mitchell, not Drew Hutch. Drew Hutch is showtime. He's showtime too. Like at a half, what a centre. Well, he's everything. He's penciled in at halfback, right? So at the Dogs, and if he starts there, I'll take him at centre at $350K. You know, like his average as a half last year was 62. It's a little skewed by 130 against, I think it was the Dolphins. But outside of that, 45 with upside. That's what you're paying for, and at $350K. I'm willing to take it.
Look, I'm hoping that a genuine cheapie comes along and I don't have to go with Drew Hutch because I'm worried. I love Drew Hutch. I really do. But I'm worried about the Bulldogs.
I'll put you on the line. $350K, you can only have one of Drew Hutch or Xerri, both named round 1. Who do you pick?
I would go with Drew Hutchison.
Me too.
But I think the better guy at 5'8" is Flanagan. Kyle Flanagan.
100%. I've got Hutch as a centre.
So you've got So you've got lots of and Aiden Caesar as well. So you've got lots of these.
I've got Aiden Caesar as well. Yep.
Verging on veteran 5'8" and halfbacks who could actually be decent purchases for SuperCoach.
And 2 of them are goal kicking. So that's why I've got Caesar and Flanagan as my backup halves and 5'8".
Dylan Lucas is a guy I've got on my list, and I know that you're pretty keen on him as well. Very good playing on the edge at the end of last year. Looks like he's got that edge back row spot locked in after that good form last season at the Knights. So, look, centre wing availability, which may or may not have been an error on our part during the pre-season. But either way, you've got a back rower playing big minutes available at centre wing. It's SuperCoach gold.
An 80-minute edge who works his butt off, so has big base, is exactly what you want. My fear, and you know it, is Kai Pearce-Paul Pierce.
Yeah.
Pearce-Paul, I think.
The English Sonny Bill.
Let's just go with KPP.
Just call him the English Sonny Bill.
Even if he doesn't start, he's going to be sitting there on the bench, and he's a strong chance to start. So my fear there is Lucas has competition and is $500K. I don't think he'll lose you money. As long as he starts, I think it's a solid get. But you may end up trading him if he doesn't keep his job. But I made that mistake last year with Connolly Lemu, I think it was. I was like, is he going to keep his job? Because I think it was the Bromwich brothers or someone else someone was coming back. And so I slept on him and ended up missing out. He did really, really well. So I feel strong vibes of that this year.
Yep. Hit us with your next guy on your list.
Keenan Palasia.
Yeah.
Former Bronco, now at the Titans. This one's tricky. He's like $350K, but he is dual position, and I like that. My front row forward 3, so after my 2 guns, I like to have a guy who's a legitimate. I can slot you in there if a 1 or 2 week injury hits my front row that I don't want to trade, right? My guns. And I think Palasia could be that guy. The negative is he's going into what is actually a really strong pack. And if he's not starting, then I probably won't spend $350K. But if he is starting, I think he's well worth the money.
Yeah, there's a bit of chat floating around that he'll start at lock. I don't know where that leaves Tino.
Well, Tino starts at prop alongside, what's his name? Mo Fotuaika, who's like a 65-minute prop.
Yeah.
And if he had anything other than just runs and tackles in him, I would be a SuperCoach gun. And Mastermind loves it. Anyway, I've gone off to the sideline. Piakura, if he starts, I like.
Yeah, Mo Fot, I think, is a really good draft by a draft sleeper. What do we got next? Roosters. Siwa Wong.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a really good mid-ranger at the Roosters this year. I don't know if it's going to be Wong, who's been named, I think, on the bench or even out of the 17 for the weekend. You can't trust trial teams.
Yeah.
But then you've got Angus Crichton named on the bench this week. I don't think it's going to be him, unfortunately. It looks like he's on the outer at the club. He could be in France by next week. We don't know. And then
Satili as well. Satili Tupanua, who's like at $400K.
So between the three of those, I'm probably ruling out Crichton. So between Wong and Satili, we've probably got a pretty solid mid-ranger at the Roosters this year.
And then, I mean, you've got Nat Butcher holding one edge and Egan Butcher just throwing like that. Like as a nobody in the team and would be a starter in quite a few teams. It's an embarrassment of riches, isn't it?
And that is the issue. They've got so many back rowers and props too. Their forward pack is so stacked. How many minutes can these guys actually get?
That's actually why I put a line through Wong. Yeah. I love watching him play. I could tell you my Tibby Cotter bridge story, but I've told him again 1,000 times. So, look, love him as a player. Just don't see the value in SuperCoach.
And then I've got a TBC here for you. I'm interested to see what you come up with.
I did do my work. Morgan Smithies is the third one.
How small is that font?
It's bloody tiny. How are you meant to read that? I can't read that. I'm making it up.
You always complain about the size of the font that I come up with, and then you pull out a 4-point.
Anyway, look, moving on. Morgan Smithies. Tipped to start at lock at the Raiders, but that is because Corey Horsburgh is suspended. When Horsburgh comes back, I mean, people have talked about Horse moves into the front row rotation, and that makes sense, but they have some pretty good props in Tapane and Papali and Emre Gula, and who's the other? The guy who started a couple of games last year and did really well, former Knight. I can't think of it, which is terrible. But anyway, Smithies, the trick is that he's been at the Super League, and you can't get per game sort of performances from stats, but his season stats tell us lots of tackles, loads of runs, a few offloads and tackle bus, but he's going to be a base producer. $350K, I'm not going to lose any money. I've just got him as my second row 5 or 6 at the moment. I like it.
I talked up Morgan Smithies in our Cheapies episode last week because he's borderline.
Did I poo-poo it at the time?
And you poo-pooed it really badly. Now you appeared to have listened to what I've said, and now you like him.
Look, next show I'll just have him as a no-go zone. I don't care.
No-go zone is coming up next.
Look at that.
Great little segue there. Any changes to your team?
Loads.
Mid-range, but more mid-range related. I don't want the full lowdown of the 17 changes you've made. No,
look, as far as mid-ranges go, I think I've brought in Palacia and I've brought in Smithies. I've taken out Siwa Wong. Let me see. I've still got Xerri, still love Lane. Those would be my main changes. Yeah, how about you?
I've got no Pappenhausen anymore. I've gone with Turbo, which is a pretty common one. And I had Schuster from the start of the season. Obviously, I mean, he's named to play this weekend in the trial, but he's not looking good for Vegas.
Did you put Burbo into your team?
And Burbo's
That's in. Ben Trebojevic, for anyone who's new to the game.
Yeah.
There's Turbo, Gerbo and Burbo. And Burbo killed it in that trial.
I would say that probably the biggest SuperCoach storyline of this week is Ben Trebojevic looking like he's going to start in round 1 in Vegas. And he's centre wing available and back row as well, so dual positioning.
Message for Anthony Seibold if he's watching. Well, he's probably not watching live, but when he watches it back on replay. Not yet. No. I reckon Burbo is the answer to his lock issue. I think he'd be great there. He can pass. He's bigger than you think. He's about Isaiah Yeo size. That's what I want. I want Isaiah Yeo 2024, and Anthony Seibold can give it to us. So come on, Anthony, do that. I'll buy you a Happy Meal next time you're at Macca's.
We've got questions coming through, lots of them this week, because we actually did our preview video a little bit earlier instead of being in the studio while we did it. Ian Maybanks has written in Mastermind. And obviously,
it's a sledge.
He's a Brisbane guy, loves his Cowboys as well. so he's always slanted in that direction. But he says, Leilua to the Dragons, Helam Lukey has rocketed up the 2RF rankings for me. What do you guys reckon?
100%. I really like what Lukey brings. He's big. He works. I think it'd be tremendous. The issue was that there was so many players lining up for that left edge at the Cowboys. But now that Leilua's out of the way, it's a great call.
I'm going to take another one from Twitter. We're on Insta and Facebook as well. This from Border Athletics SC? Is it reasonable this season to go with 6 mid-ranges in the 2RF? That's in the 2RF is the back row, by the way.
I think 5 and find a cheapie. Just because there are some decent cheapie options, but you could make a strong case for 6. I've got one, and a comment from Drew Johnson, who I follow on Twitter and who follows me, and is tremendously good value because he comes up with a new trading regimen every year, and each year it ends in disaster, and I really enjoy following Drew's tale of misery as the year winds on. He wants to start with Gutho and Paps at fullback. Gutho for safety, Paps for upside risk, and for once, I can't say Drew's got it wrong. I think he's absolutely nailed it.
I know I've talked about
good
draft
option.
a lot on this show, but Gutherson should be a lot higher in a lot of draft rankings because he is the most durable player in SuperCoach. He's played every game except 2 in the last 4 seasons. I think that stat is correct. So
he's a tribute to Elastoplast, isn't he?
He's held together with elastic bands and tape.
Yeah. But it works.
Very durable, and I was going to say something else about him. He's finished top 3 in fullback for almost every year for the last 5 or something.
He's one of those guys finishes top 3 for overall points, but 6th for average, and therefore people discount the value he brings into your team. It's a bit like, and I think we talk about this. I'll talk about it next show. I'll save my...
So we're going to change shirts and make it look like we've shot 2 separate episodes. So we're going to do one of the feedback things that we had in the feedback meeting was to share what we've learned from this episode. What do you think you've learned? Shaun Lane's a must-have.
Yes.
Burbo's probably the biggest guy who's surged in the last week.
Yes.
That Ben Trebojevic.
Yep. The Jaden Campbell injury puts a line through him. You know what I learnt? Ian Maybach's. The Lukey thing, it's a really good call.
Yeah.
He needs to come back into considerations once that Leilua deal is done.
Sweet. Well, that is it for our Mid-Range Madness episode. As I said, we'll be back. It'll be live on Monday for our no-go zone, which should get interesting. We'll see you then.